What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Clutch People TV, and today I'm going to be breaking down the 2004 NBA draft class, and this should be a very interesting series on this channel as I'm going to be breaking down the players that went 1 through 14. I'm going to be doing the lottery. I'm going to be doing it up to probably like 2017 or 2018, but I might not do 2018 because 2018 draft class 19 and 20, it's way too early. Some players may look like bust right now, but they might end up like having this very solid role down the road in their NBA career, being a solid starter, solid role player, being an all-star at some point. Like, there's tons of players that went from like looking like a bust, not living up to expectations, but ended up being like good players in the NBA. But this is a very interesting draft class with Emeka Okafor, Dwight Howard, Iguodala, and then there were some players that were kind of hyped or had high expectations but did not work out in the NBA. So I'm going to be starting off here with the Orlando Magic. Of course, they did take Dwight Howard out of high school. Of course, he grew up in Georgia. He was known as this very high-flying athlete, could finish with either hand. Stephen A. Smith at the time, because we'll get into the second overall pick later, Stephen A. Smith thought the Magic should have drafted Emeka Okafor because he thought he was a safe pick at the time, especially on the defense side of the basketball. He thought the Magic needed someone like that. And this is a crazy draft class because we're not going to be getting into Jameer Nelson because we're going to be going 1 through 14 of the lottery and just like how these prospects worked out. That they got to build a championship team even though they didn't win the NBA championship. They got Jameer Nelson and Dwight Howard in the same draft, which is crazy. Of course, he ended up being their point guard, Jameer Nelson. Then they got their franchise center. But we know Dwight Howard ended up being this great player in his NBA career. If you go over the accolades of 8-time All-Star, 2-time block champion, 8-time All-NBA, 2004-05 All-Rookie Team, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, 5-time total rebound, 5-time rebound champ. Went to the NBA Finals with the Magic. He's an NBA champion with the Los Angeles Lakers and dunk champion. He just had a great NBA career. Of course, his career is still going on with the Philadelphia 76ers. Kind of this veteran role, helping out these young guys. Like, there was always the issue of the locker room problems because, of course, he was a beast with the Magic, and then he ended up being dealt to the Lakers, and no one really won that trade whatsoever. There was a whole narrative. He's not good in the locker room. He's not a good leader. He's kind of childish. He ended up playing for other teams like the Hawks, the Hornets. He ended up just flying all over the NBA. And when he ended up going to the Lakers, people were like, okay, that's just going to mess up the Lakers. They're not going to win a championship because he's so bad in the locker room. What was the point of signing him? He's washed. But he's actually matured himself. So you got to give credit to Dwight Howard. A lot of people were like, Dwight Howard, he's this immature dude or whatever. But he actually did a very solid job leading the troops in that locker room with the Lakers. Of course, he's not the main leader of that basketball team when they went on to win the championship in the bubble. But you definitely have to give him credit for really maturing himself and staying out the way. But playing for so many teams in his NBA career, the Magic, Lakers, Rockets, Hawks, Hornets, Wizards, Lakers, and Sixers. And you have to keep in mind, this man was the first overall pick. And you guys are probably like, wow, he played for that many teams throughout his NBA career and he was the first overall pick. But yeah, went to the NBA Finals. He was the best center in the NBA at one point. He was just absolutely amazing. And he was an athletic freak. He dominated in the post. Never really had a go-to move, something like that in his arsenal. But he just relied off his athleticism, and he was just so much fun to watch. He didn't stretch the floor, but you notice later in his NBA career, he's kind of been the solid guy, nothing great as he used to be because he never really developed like a proper, like just a dream shake in his arsenal like Hakeem Olajuwon or something like that. His game really relied off of athleticism, leaping up, getting those rebounds for sure. So now you don't see him as the same, and the NBA's changing of spreading it to the outside type of thing. But Dwight Howard, he's lived up to the hype, went to the NBA Finals. Luckily, he did go on to win a championship with the Lakers, and this role of just like helping out the young players and just being a nice energy guy. He actually contributed very well or like nicely for that Lakers team. Second was actually my favorite player, or like one of my favorite players in the NBA when I was like really young. His name's Emeka Okafor. He was drafted 2nd overall by the Bobcats. I almost wrote the Hornets when I did write this down 1 through 14. He was from UConn. He actually did win Player of the Year. This man was a defensive anchor. He led college basketball in blocks. He was also good at crashing the glass. But there was some concerns when it came to a back injury. I remember he had one in a game. I went back, watched the film. I literally watched the 2004 NBA draft because there were some guys, I was like way too young. I was born in 2004. I was like, I don't know much about certain guys like in this draft class. I didn't get to see because I was like, some of these guys didn't stay long enough in the NBA for me to see them. Like, yeah, I'm watching this guy at 4 years old, totally. And I literally had to go back, watch the analysis of the 2004 NBA draft, just had to watch college film and all that. But Emeka Okafor was a good player when he was healthy in his NBA career. He won NBA Rookie of the Year over Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard had a good season, but Emeka Okafor was really solid his rookie year. He had 15 points per game, 11 rebounds, 2 blocks on like nearly 45% shooting. And he did have some ankle injuries, and he definitely did have some injury concerns in his NBA career. He did go on to gain 20 pounds at one point, which definitely did not help with his rehab, which really sucked. But he had a lot of talent coming out. Some people thought he was just like no miss prospect. You just can't miss on this dude. But he won a national championship. Of course, there's back-to-back players from UConn that won in this draft. We'll get to the next one later at pick number 3. But he missed 3 straight seasons due to a neck injury as well. It just really is sad. He was a good player. He was skilled. He was dominant in the paint for sure. Didn't have like an outside shot, but talk about a player that was skilled inside. He was athletic. He was a good basketball player. He was good on defense as well. And he was like one of the top shot blockers his rookie year. Like, he was a good player in the NBA. It really sucks that injuries did go on to hurt his NBA career. But then trades went on to happen, of course, not being able to rehab properly with certain injuries. In 2012, he was traded with Trevor Ariza, a guy in my Knicks draft that I wish we held on to because he's a very solid player. He was traded in 2012 with Ariza to the Wizards in exchange for Rashard Lewis, who's a player that was actually good in his NBA career as well, or at least you could say solid, and the 46th pick of the 2012 draft. Then he was dealt to the Suns in exchange for Gortat, Shannon Brown, Kendall Marshall, and just like pretty much since the injuries happened, he didn't do much in his NBA career. And also Malcolm Lee, he didn't play due to the neck injury, so he didn't get to play for the Suns, which just really sucked. And certain people were really excited to see what he would do. Like, specifically me in 2012, I was like, he's going to get his opportunity here with the Suns. Gortat's gone. He could step in as a starting center role. But sadly, of course, the injury did go on to happen. But in 2017, he was cleared to play back from the neck injury. Like I said, he missed 3 seasons due to the neck injury. It was that bad. The Sixers went on to pick him up, but then he was waived, and then he went on to join their affiliate G League team. And he didn't do much, but he ended up returning to New Orleans because Cousins was hurt at the time when Cousins was on the New Orleans Pelicans, and they needed a center there, and they signed him to a 10-day contract, and then he was waived, and now he's overseas. But it's really a sad, tragic career when it comes to Emeka Okafor. I literally had to write this all down. Usually I'm good at like remembering this. Like, I knew the gist of his NBA career, but I wanted to make sure I got it right. But this man was really talented, one of the top defensive players out of college basketball, dominant inside. He was a can't-miss prospect. He won Rookie of the Year, and he was contributing. Injuries got in the way. He was a good basketball player, Emeka Okafor, and it really is tragic. But we don't know how he would do nowadays because he was not a guy that could really stretch the floor, and he really never was properly skilled. Didn't really have a hook shot in his arsenal or something like that, or have great footwork. But he was a good player. It really does suck. But now with the 3rd overall pick, the Chicago Bulls went on to select Ben Gordon from UConn. Of course, he won a national championship with Emeka Okafor. UConn prospects going back-to-back here. And the big question was, is he a point guard or shooting guard translating to the NBA? They knew his scoring abilities, his defense abilities. Like, Ben Gordon is probably one of the most underrated players in the NBA. Maybe you could say he had like 1 or 2 seasons. But maybe I'm just a biased Ben Gordon guy. But with the Bulls, he had a season that he averaged 20 points per game on really good efficiency, 45% from the field. And he shot 40% from downtown for his NBA career. He was a good scorer, and he's a guy that definitely tried hard on defense. Kind of this combo guard. He could play some point guard, play some shooting guard. He wasn't like a main shooting guard, and he wasn't a main point guard. But he was a guy, like I said, averaged 20 points per game one season on 45% shooting, 40% from 3 in his NBA career. Ben Gordon was a legit scorer of the basketball. He was a dog for sure, Ben Gordon. And I'm sure Bulls fans, some Bulls fans may say, well, that didn't see Michael Jordan. Ben Gordon might be their favorite player, or a guy like Derrick Rose. But I know some Bulls fans that really love Ben Gordon. Back-to-back pick, of course. Emeka Okafor drafted out of UConn, and then Ben Gordon drafted out of UConn as well. So I thought that was really cool. But yeah, Ben Gordon was selected by the Chicago Bulls. He had a solid NBA career scoring the basketball. 4th overall, some casual NBA fans may not know this, but Shaun Livingston was a pick of the fourth overall pick by the Los Angeles Clippers at the time. The Clippers were not good at the time. They were not great basketball team, 2004. The Clippers were literally like the worst team in the league back in the day. It was just a team you did not want to go to, a dysfunctional organization. But he ended up going to the Clippers, and he started off his career really well. He was thriving. The big question marks out of college was he needs to get a jump shot. They're saying his jump shot's really flat. He was never a shooter from downtown, but we knew he had this length. He had this athleticism, but they also said he had to gain weight or to get pushed off the block, especially when you can't shoot. He's a guy that definitely have to drive, and that doesn't really mean anything if you don't have any weight to bully yourself inside, but he definitely was good at using his length. And he did develop one of the most unstoppable shots like in NBA history. If you watch NBA and you're an NBA nerd like me, watching those Warriors series, he was deadly from mid-range territory. But flashback to his Clippers days, like a big-time injury really got in the way. Like he was good. I thought he was on path to be even greater than he actually ended up being, due to like he had this terrible knee injury, and it was just absolutely awful. One of the most gruesome injuries in NBA history. But he was a good player, and it really does suck, but I'm glad he went on to win NBA championships with the Warriors. He's one of those glue guys, played defense, had like just like when you watch the games, I swear he did not miss from mid-range territory. But Shaun Livingston, I was actually a big fan of him. He's a guy that came out of high school as well, just like Dwight Howard, but I thought he actually had a very quality NBA career. Maybe you could say he wasn't 4th overall pick material, but we don't know that. He went on to get hurt, and he still went on to have a very solid NBA career. 5th overall, Devin Harris was selected by the Washington Wizards. He ended up being traded to the Mavericks, and it's funny because he went to the Mavericks again back towards the end of his NBA career. Coming out of college, he was known as a slasher, can go downhill, plays good defense. He went back to Dallas, like I said. At the end of his career, he was known for his Nets days. He was a one-time All-Star. Like Devin Harris, some people may be like Devin Harris casual, 2K13. Yeah, he was all right driving to the basket with the Dallas Mavericks and all that. He was athletic. But when he was a one-time All-Star, he averaged 21 points per game and 7 assists. Like Devin Harris was a very quality player, and he had a couple years that he could just score the ball. He wasn't the most efficient from downtown, not the greatest scorer, but he was a really good athlete, and maybe you could say he was the material of that pick because he did go on to be an All-Star and a quality player in his NBA career. Towards the end, he wasn't anything special, but I definitely did like his days with the New Jersey Nets, and there's another player that was solid in his New Jersey Nets days on this list as well. But now 6th overall, we have Childress here. Childress, interesting prospect for sure, coming out of college, known as a good athlete, of course, taken in the 2004 NBA draft. He did make the all-rookie team. He had an interesting career because he played his first 4 seasons with the Atlanta Hawks, of course, drafted by the Hawks. He averaged double digits, but then he went on to go overseas, which really confused me. Trying to find the information when it comes to that because I was really young. I didn't get to watch him from 2004 to 2008, so I had to do some information. And all I saw that he went overseas. I don't know the proper reason. Didn't say there was an injury. Didn't say he got kicked out of the league or anything like that. But he was averaging double digits. He was shooting really good efficiency, 50%. But he went overseas to Greece for 2 seasons. Then he had to return to the NBA. The Suns acquired rights for him, and he really didn't do anything after that. But yeah, he averaged like his first 4 seasons in the NBA, 10 points, 10 points. 13 points, 11.8 points, and like 11.8 points get you out of the league. I'm really confused what happened with him, but he's definitely a guy that was a good athlete, played hard coming out of college. A really good athlete. 7th overall pick, the Suns, Luol Deng. Of course, he ended up being traded to the Chicago Bulls. This is a Tom Thibodeau guy. This man was on the Timberwolves. He was on the Bulls, which Tom Thibodeau coached both of Luol Deng on the Timberwolves and Bulls. This is a guy that was a good scorer. He was efficient, played a lot of minutes. You know Tom Thibodeau likes to play starters a lot. And in those first like 2 games, or not 2 games, a couple seasons in his NBA career, he nearly played like 40 minutes per game. So he was really well conditioned, and he was a beast coming out of Duke. He played both ends. Like I said, he played 39 minutes and 38 minutes, and we know he was a big contributing piece to that Derrick Rose era, Joakim Noah era of Tom Thibodeau coaching. But then he kind of had the laughing moment of he got that $72 million contract with the Lakers, and he barely played because he was injured. It was just a terrible contract by the Lakers. Of course, they hit it out like Mozgov contracts at that time. It was just a mess, but $72 million contract for Luol Deng, who was not in his prime, but a guy that played both ends of the floor, big contributing piece, definitely was worth the 7th overall pick, being traded from the Suns to the Chicago Bulls, played for the Bulls, played for the Timberwolves, and he had a solid NBA career where you could say he was good. I was a big fan of Luol Deng. I really respected how he played. He was kind of scary out there on the court, really intimidating player. 8th overall pick, the Raptors. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name again. Rafael Araujo. I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce it. From BYU, this is another guy I had to do research on because he ended up being a bust in his NBA career. 8th overall pick from BYU, and yeah, he just was not a good player. He was a big man. He played the center position. He never really had elevation down low in the paint, wasn't really athletic, and he wasn't really in NBA shape. But yeah, I literally had to watch the 2004 NBA draft. I found the whole video of it, like the whole draft on YouTube, which is amazing. But he was definitely a bigger guy, had to be in NBA shape, didn't look like he was really conditioned. But he's a guy that really relied on his strength. He just bullied guys down low. But the big problem was if you don't really have, like, if you're not really conditioned, or if you don't have the athleticism, you need the skill, and he did not have that, and he's one of the biggest NBA busts. Averaged like 3 points for the Raptors. He was not a good player. He was solid at BYU. But yeah, this was not a good pick by the Raptors. They could have had better players. But Raptors, of course, ended up winning an NBA championship, which backs that up. But Rafael was not a good pick by the Toronto Raptors whatsoever. Now, the 9th overall pick, one of the best players out of this draft, the 76ers went on to draft Andre Iguodala. And we know Andre Iguodala as this guy. When I think of him, at least, I think of a very good veteran that you put him on the best player on the opposing team. Now he plays for the Miami Heat. Thought that was a good pickup, good veteran leadership, especially with younger guys like Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson. I'm not saying I don't trust Jimmy Butler, but when you have a guy like Andre Iguodala who could play really good defense and he's a no-nonsense guy, it's definitely a good pickup. But in his NBA career, he's a 3-time NBA champion. He's a 1-time All-Star, 2-time All-Defensive Team, All-Rookie Team as well. Finals MVP, known for playing very good defense on LeBron James in the finals. He's 76ers. Like, when he played for the Sixers, he was an all-star, played for the Nuggets, played for the Warriors. He played for a lot of NBA teams, the Heat as well. And he's just a very nice contributing piece. He was a really good athlete earlier in his career. Doesn't really have that pep in his step like he used to. Now he's just a very good defender and just a very good glue guy. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can continue to do with the Miami Heat this upcoming season. But I am a fan of Andre Iguodala. I do have like a couple basketball cards when it comes to Andre Iguodala. But I was a fan of his game, or I'm a fan of his game, because he's not really in his prime anymore. That's why I said like was. But good athlete, good defensive player, hit some big shots in his career as well. 10th overall, this is a very interesting player coming out of Oregon, I believe he played for. The Cleveland Cavaliers took Luke Jackson at 10. The Oregon product, great shooter. He had the weirdest mechanics, so it kind of looked like he shot with 2 hands, which I did earlier in my career. Or not career, I didn't play professional basketball. But when I did play, I played up to 8th grade, but then I wasn't like really feeling it. It's a long story. But yeah, Dick Vitale actually said the 76ers should have drafted Luke Jackson instead of Andre Iguodala, which is really interesting. And Luke Jackson simply was not great in his NBA career. Averaged 3 points in his career, but he did have injuries. He was traded to the Celtics, was waived. He had a 10-day contract by the Raptors. After performing well, he was signed to a second 10-day contract and put up like 30 points in the last game of the season in 39 minutes. And he went to the G League, and I remember they released Penny Hardaway to clear a roster spot for him, but Jackson didn't really do anything, or he pretty much didn't do anything for the Cleveland Cavaliers. 11th overall, the Golden State Warriors selected Andris Biedrins. I believe he's the second player, or there's actually, I believe Bertans is Latvian, Porzingis is Latvian, Kurucs might be Latvian. I don't know about Bertans, I might be wrong with that. But yeah, he was actually, I think, the first Latvian player drafted Biedrins, and he was known as being this very good, skilled player in the post. Not very athletic. He was not the greatest free throw shooter whatsoever coming from overseas, but I actually thought he had a solid career. He averaged a double-double in his career in 2008 and 2009. He was very efficient, and he averaged 7 rebounds per game in his career. So in my opinion, that's actually a very solid player for 11th overall in the NBA draft. People make fun of him because of the free throws, but he was actually a solid player. 12th overall, this is probably one of the most sad stories, or probably the most sad story coming out of this NBA draft back in 2004. Robert Swift, just one of the most skilled players coming out of high school. A lot of people said he wasn't ready, though, coming out of high school. Just a very sad story, selected by the Supersonics, 12th overall. His family went bankrupt. He had drug addiction. It's just a disaster when it comes to him because he was really skilled. It's just like, he had a lot going on. It's hard when you're a high schooler entering the NBA and your family goes bankrupt. You have to make sure that you put them in the position to be good because you're the one that went to the NBA. Just like drug addiction. I'm not going to go specifically into the drug addiction, but it really does suck because he was a really talented player. You may know him as having a lot of these like tattoos, but a very skilled player, one of the top high school players ever. And it's a really tragic story. Maybe if he didn't have all the extra stuff or didn't get distracted, or I'm not going to say distracted because family, of course, you got to make sure you take care of your family. But maybe if this extra stuff didn't happen, maybe you'd be good in the NBA and put in the work, because it's really hard to put in the work and be focused when you have this other stuff going on. but a lot of people said he wasn't ready, but one of the most skilled players coming out of this draft, and he just did not succeed. 13th overall, we have Sebastian Telfair by the Trailblazers, actually one of the top high school players ever. He was getting hyped up. I believe he was on like Slam magazines. It was just insane. Since high school, he was really hyped up, but he did have some off-the-court problems. You could say he did kind of have a solid role, I guess you could say, when it comes to being he was a solid scorer in his NBA career. It was nothing special. He was like a solid role player. You might think of him like with the Thunder, but he didn't do much in his NBA career. Someone that definitely did not live up to the hype, sadly, because I actually wanted him to kind of be successful, or I wanted him to be successful due to how good he was out of high school, but then he ended up getting into some troubles, like I believe a couple years ago or a year ago. Last pick, the 14th overall pick, Chris Humphries was taken by the Utah Jazz, and this man was a beast in college. Like, a lot of people think of Chris Humphries, I believe he like dated the Kardashian. But when I think of Chris Humphries, I think of him at, fun fact, he beat Michael Phelps in like swimming when they were kids. Like, he beat Michael Phelps, and Michael Phelps was like, nope, I'm not getting beat by a basketball player again. But yeah, this man, when you watched him, he was just not great. He didn't live up to like lottery pick standards. Like, a lot of people make fun of him. You could like say he was trash at one point in his career, but he did have back-to-back seasons averaging a double-double. He was solid with the New Jersey Nets. He really was solid. He averaged 20 and 10. In college as a freshman of the year. But like I said, when I think of him beating Michael Phelps, which is not the best thing when you think of a basketball player, but you think back to the New Jersey Nets days, he was a solid player. And like I said, talking about another player that played for the New Jersey Nets, Devin Harris, he played for the New Jersey Nets like I was talking about earlier. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be free to give me a thumbs up and click that subscribe button. Thank you so much for a great amount of support. And as always, guys, have a humble day or night. Peace out, y'all.